Dodgers make their first cut to the spring. Was there any surprises? 4 games this weekend to talk about. What do we like from all these games? What do we see? And is someone starting to emerge as a number 5 starter? And is there concern about Yoshinobu Yamamoto and tipping his pitches? We'll get into all that. So make sure to get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And if you want to become an everydayer, all you have to do is listen or watch every day, which can be made easier by subscribing and get notified when our episodes are ready for you. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. My name is Vince Samperio. I'm usually joined by co-host Jeff Snyder, but it's just me today going solo dolo. Jeff and I are both lifelong Dodger fans that have covered the team for a few years now. We've watched a lot of Dodger games over our lifetime, and especially in the last 5 years. And we're here just to bring you what we believe is smart and rational takes about the Dodgers. We're not quite insiders. We're just here to bring the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. And we're here to get into some of that today. No huge breaking news in terms of any deals or anything for the Dodgers over the weekend. We did find out that Matt Chapman signed with the Giants, which could affect the Dodgers a little bit. But Chapman, who had previously reportedly turned down at least $100 million deal from the Blue Jays as part of an extension, ends up getting a lot less than $100 million. Signs a 3-year deal with the Giants. The Giants called it a 1-year deal, and then there's 2 options. He's able to opt out after every year. So not quite the money he was looking for. He could, in theory, opt out after this first year and try to make his money back. But we'll see what happens there. But shout out to the Giants. They're trying. They're trying to lock down second place in the NL West, and I appreciate them for that. They were linked to Blake Snell still, and Farhan Zaidi said that the offseason is over. But he also said that before they signed Matt Chapman, so who really knows? But the one news that did come out of Dodger camp was the Dodgers are starting to reduce their roster. They had the first round of spring training cuts. They optioned Landon Knack, Ricky Vanasco, and Nick Frasso. They optioned Hunter Fiducia and Diego Cartaya. They optioned Andy Pages, and then they reassigned a few players, not as big as names: Steven Gonsalves, Jesse Hahn, Michael Peterson, River Ryan, and Eduardo Salazar, and Travis Swaggerty. They reassigned them to minor league camp. So the Dodgers roster currently sits at 50. Obviously, they'll have to get that down before opening day. But the no real surprises there. Landon Knack has pitched well so far this spring, but realistically wasn't really in the mix for the number 5 spot in the rotation, and is likely going to start the season at OKC. And in their rotation, Ricky Vanasco, who is on the Dodgers 40-man, we weren't sure what the Dodgers had in mind for him, but after some of the moves they made this offseason, bringing back Joe Kelly, bringing back Brian Brazier, realistically, he wasn't going to start the year in the majors, so it makes sense there. Nick Frasso, as we know, is hurt. Diego Cartaya is a name that we haven't heard in a while. We did find out over the weekend he's been dealing with a little bit of a back injury. That's why we haven't really seen him too much in terms of any of the spring games. The Dodgers are slowly bringing him along. So it makes sense that they optioned him back down to minor league camp. Now, before we get into Andy Pages, which is probably the one big surprise and the one people have some issues with, remember that if you get sent down to minor league camp, that doesn't mean that you can't still play in Cactus League games. So just because Andy Pages got sent down doesn't mean we won't see Andy Pages get at bats in spring training games. But realistically, he wasn't going to make the opening day roster. The Dodgers roster has been set since before spring started, realistically, and then it got reset a little bit, but still set. There's only 4 bench spots available after the starting 9, and that's Miguel Rojas, Austin Barnes, and then whoever is not starting in the outfield. So whether that's Chris Taylor and Kike Hernandez, whether that's Jason Hayward, whoever two of those aren't playing. So realistically, Pages wasn't going to make the roster, and again, this doesn't stop him from being able to participate in spring games. But realistically, with the Dodgers starting to ramp up, they got just over a week before they head out to Korea. The major league guys, the guys that are going to be on the everyday roster, are probably going to start getting more playing time, and it's just a move in itself of hey, Pages, you're not going to get as much playing time as you had been, but we appreciate you, whatever the case is. And Jeff, who wasn't going to be able to do today's episode, did have some thoughts. Jeff said, my thoughts are basically that it makes a ton of sense because as we get closer to Korea, they're starting to need more playing time. So the best way for Pages to get a ton of playing time is in the minor league games. Doesn't make him any more or less likely to be in the big leagues this year. So yeah, basically same thing. No concern there. If I still believe at this point that he's going to be one of the first guys called up if there's a injury that would in the outfield that takes out someone that could miss, more than a couple weeks at a time. He is a guy that looked really good this spring. It doesn't look like he has any residual effects from getting shoulder surgery. And, was a guy that was swinging the bat well, had a couple home runs this spring, was looking pretty good. And is one of him and Miguel Vargas are basically competing for first guy to get called up if an outfielder goes down. Pages has a little bit of an advantage if it's specifically an outfielder because he has played the outfield more. Vargas is still learning the outfield, but regardless of all that, he wasn't going to make the team. This doesn't change too much in terms of his prospects of making the team at some point this year, and we're still probably going to see him at least once or twice here in the next week or so playing in the Cactus League games, but it might just be toward the end of the game rather than starting the game. So other than that, there was not much there. River Ryan, he also got reassigned. We haven't really seen him so far this year. The Dodgers have been slow playing him a little bit in terms of getting back into it. So that was one of those that was not a surprise either. But yeah, I mean that's really the gist of the first cuts. I don't think there will be any surprises in terms of cuts throughout the entire process. I don't think there's going to be someone that we say like, oh man, is not going to be on the opening day roster. I guess Alex Vesia could be one of those guys who's like a guy who struggled a little bit this spring and maybe didn't have the most secure spot, but I believe he's probably pretty secure in there. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But the Dodgers are starting to get ready. We're getting closer. We're less than or like 15, 16 days away from the Dodgers' first game, technically, in Korea. So we're getting there, and we're getting close, and the Dodgers have to start making those moves. So there was 4 games to talk about from over the weekend, 1 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and 1 on Sunday. What did we see in those games? What did we like? And maybe what we didn't like, if there was anything of concern. That's what's coming up, so make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. And there's so much to get in on, especially with the NBA. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. There's always little things, to look into. So go check out the FanDuel app, FanDuel.com/locked on. Check it out. See what you can build. pick your favorite player, pick how many points they're going to score that night, and see what the spread is on them, and put the over under on that. You can pick your favorite team to win. You can pick your favorite team to lose if your team is probably going to lose. And there's a lot of different things to get into. So that's FanDuel.com/locked on and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe and be notified when our episodes are ready. We know you're usually ready for us every weekday morning, Monday through Friday. We did put out one extra episode last week. So if you had your notifications set up, if you were subscribed, you would have noticed, hey, there's a new episode. I didn't expect this. Thank you, Locked On Dodgers. And you would have had that. So if you're already on YouTube, make sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles. Those are two 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network that are covering the news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world from Locked On experts, hosts, and more. It's going on 24/7 on YouTube, so go check that out. All right, so like I mentioned, there was 4 games this weekend. The Dodgers had split squad on Saturday, and then obviously one on Friday, one on Sunday. We'll just kind of go through each of the games and kind of what stood out. On Friday night, it was a little bit of a slow night for the Dodger offense, at least the starters. Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, and Freddie Freeman all got the starts. They had a combined 1 hit. That 1 hit was Ohtani, who also drew a pair of walks. So not much going from them. The other guys in there, Kike Hayward, Austin Barnes, didn't really contribute much. Pitching wise is where the real story was of the night. Tyler Glasnow made his second start of the spring and looked really good. He went 3 innings, struck out 5, and just had some nasty stuff. I mean, the fastball, we know, especially coming from a guy that's 6'8", like the fastball runs high 90s. He usually sits 95, 97, depending on the day. Can ramp it up to 99 if he needs to. And he got 1 strikeout from a fastball up in the zone, which was seemingly unhittable. But he had the off speed working. A couple shout out to whoever was behind the plate. I think it was Austin Barnes early in that part of the game, because he threw a couple curveballs that spiked pretty early. Got some pretty bad swings and misses. Yeah, Glasnow looked really good, and I'm looking forward to seeing him make his first start of the regular season over there in Korea. Beyond that, pitchers that kind of matter for the Dodgers. Blake Treinen threw an inning and was fine. Didn't allow any hits. Didn't get a strikeout, but didn't allow any hits. JP Fireeisen struggled a little bit. Did give up 4 hits and 2 runs. But he's still getting used to pitching again. He hasn't pitched in a while, so we'll give him a couple outings to get under his belt and see where he's at. But still excited to see what he can bring to the Dodger bullpen. That game on Friday ended up becoming a Dodger win. They were down late in the game, but the bottom of the bench and the young guys came through, and the big hit was from Austin Gauthier. He hit a grand slam opposite field, pretty impressive. Gauthier is a guy that was undrafted, that may have a chance to play for the Dodgers one day. You never know. So, and on Saturday, you had the split squad. The Dodgers were at home against the Cubs and were away against the Brewers. In the game against the Brewers, they put up 11 runs. Gavin Lux had a big day at the plate, had 3 hits. And you also had James Outman had a big day. He had 3 hits and then some scattered hits from the rest of the guys. Miguel Vargas also had 3 hits that day, including a home run. So good to see him get the bat going. On the mound out there, you saw Kyle Hurt. He threw 2 innings, had a couple strikeouts on some nasty pitches. Had the change up on one of them. Looked really good. So he's a guy that has looked good so far this spring. Has a spring ERA of 0 so far. I don't know what the plan is for him. The fact that he went 2 innings means that he's probably not specifically a reliever, but that he might have a chance. I don't know. I don't know what the plan is for her. It doesn't seem like they're getting him ready for the major league roster, but he's definitely a guy that's going to help at some point this season. The rest of the way, we saw Joe Kelly have a good inning. scoreless inning, and then the rest of the pitchers there were guys that probably aren't gonna factor into the Dodgers roster so far in this season specifically. And then at home against the Cubs, Dodgers put up 8 runs there, and had Max Muncy had a hit. We had Teoscar had a hit. Andy Pajes had the big home run there, which is why people probably were upset that he got reassigned to minor league camp. But again, that's just the way it goes. On the pitching side, we had Ryan Yarbrough, Evan Phillips, Brusdar Graterol, Ryan Brazier, all pitch somewhat successfully, other than Brazier. He struggled a little bit like Fire Eyes and gave up 3 hits and a walk and 3 runs. But everybody's again, spring training results. Obviously, we would like these guys to come in and not allow any runs and just look really, really good. But naturally, that's not the case, and sometimes these guys struggle, and good to get those struggles out now. Or if they're specifically working on something, adjust what they're working on, or maybe not work on that anymore. Regardless of it, it's not a huge deal. But that's kind of went on in that game. Freddie Freeman did play in that game, struck out 3 times, 1 for 3. We got our first look at Shota Imanaga from the Cubs. He looked he got Freddie Freeman swinging on one of them. He looked like a guy that can help the Cubs out and help them. He gave up. He did give up runs, but he also had 5 strikeouts and 2 1/3. So the strikeout stuff is there. He can just make his adjustments in terms of allowing base hits and all that type of stuff. So again, not our concern really, but either way. And then we wrap it up on Sunday, where we got to see what that top of the order for the Dodgers can really do. We had Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, and Freddie Freeman combined for 7 hits. Freeman only had one of those hits, but did have 2 RBI. Shohei Ohtani was a perfect 3 for 3 at the plate with a triple and 2 RBI. And then Mookie Betts was a perfect 3 for 3 at the plate and scored 2 of those times. So you look at that top of the order, and you look at the Dodgers early in this game against somebody that is, it is the Rockies, and Rockies roster isn't necessarily set up for success, especially in the pitching department. But Austin Gomber is a guy that they're going to face in the regular season, and the Dodgers put it to him, scoring 3 runs in the first, 2 runs in the second. So that top of the order is going to be fun. You also had Will Smith and Muncy chip in with a hit and RBI. All in all, it was a fun day for the offense. On the mound, we saw the continued strong spring of Gavin Stone, who is on his way to locking down the number 5 spot in the Dodger rotation. Emmett Sheehan had shoulder soreness and hasn't got back going yet. You have Ryan Yarbrough, who's had a couple of decent outings, but nothing really to write home about. Gavin Stone's looked the most impressive of that group, and we're if the season was going to start tomorrow, I think there's, based on merit and based on excitement for him, I think Gavin Stone would be that number 5 starter. But again, with Ryan Yarbrough being a guy that's already a major league established talent, I don't know if that gives him a leg up against Stone in that regard. But Stone went 3 innings, struck out 1, no runs allowed, has a 1.59 ERA in the spring. That's out of 3 outings. So, he's looked really good so far. Michael Grove continued his spring struggles. Did go 2 1/3, but did give up 3 runs. Only struck out 2. His ERA on the spring now is up to 11.57. Obviously, small sample size and everything else about spring training, but Grove just hasn't looked that great, hasn't looked that comfortable. Again, we don't know if he's working on something specifically that he wouldn't do in the regular season game, but hasn't made the best impression if he is out there competing for a spot. We saw Gus Varlin throw an inning. He gave up a run. We saw Dinelson Lamet for the first time. He got a couple outs, got via strikeout. Again, some of these guys that we could potentially see for the Dodgers at some point, but realistically, that would mean somebody got hurt or something like that, and we don't want to wish that on it. So So yeah, a fun 4 games over the weekend for the Dodgers. They won all of them. They're now 9-2 on the spring, and again, not that that matters, but it's always fun when you're winning. And again, like we get to see fun stuff. We get to see Betts single, Otani single, Freddie single, which is something we're likely to see a lot this season. We get to see Gavin Stone continue his strong spring. We get to see Tyler Glass now look really good after not looking amazing his first spring outing, but he really brought everything this time. So there was a lot to look in or to look at this weekend, and there's obviously more to continue to look at moving forward. So last thing for today is Yoshinobu Yamamoto and pitch tipping. Rick Monday brought it up in his first spring start. Well, the Dodgers talked about it, and they're not concerned. So you shouldn't be so concerned, I would imagine, but you might be. So we'll talk about why you shouldn't be. That's what's coming up. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. If you're ever looking for tickets last minute, and it could be frustrating, but it doesn't have to be frustrating because the Game Time app is here to help you out. Game Time is fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from the seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Their game time guarantee means that you always get the best price, because if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So that's really comforting. Also, if you're going to an arena or somewhere you've never been or a stadium you've never been, they have the view from seat before you buy, so you know exactly what you're looking at, where you're going to sit, and what that view looks like before you get into it. So there's really no reason not to get the Game Time app if you're somebody that likes to find deals and get last minute tickets, or just someone that wants to have a spontaneous day. Game Time is here for you. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app right now, create an account, and use code locked on for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code locked on, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. We're here for you every Monday through Friday for about 30 minutes. So make sure to check us out. And if you want to go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider, all you have to do is go to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers, and you can text directly with us, get updates from camp and any news that's happening, our thoughts, reactions. You can directly send us a question that we'll get to you. You can send us questions for the podcast that you'll have priority. There's a lot of different benefits there. When season gets going, you'll get some views from batting practice and more. So make sure to go to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers to become a Locked On Dodgers insider. All right. So Yoshinobu Yamamoto in his first game for the Dodgers pitching, one of the concerns that was brought up by Rick Monday on the broadcast was that from the center field camera angle, you could see Yamamoto's pitches. You could see if he was throwing the splitter or throwing the fastball, whatever the case. You could see his grips. And at the time, for me, it didn't seem like a huge deal because you're trusting of the MLB system in place. Obviously, we've trusted that MLB system in place before, and it didn't work out. But you would imagine no team would be bold enough to try and use technology to steal signs now. Using the center field camera and then relaying that to hitters. But you never know. I saw some people express some concern about it, mainly because Rick Monday kept talking about it. So it got to the Dodgers, obviously, and they are not necessarily concerned. Um, you know, Pitch tipping is, Mark Pryor talked about it. He said, pitch tipping is something the Dodgers actively work to root out. He said, quote, it's a focus just because it has to be, because it's part of the game. It's not a one-off anymore. It's pretty much every team employing some version of it, whether it's players switching teams, whether it's coaches. These guys are really good at it. It's a focus that's just part of the game. So, yeah, obviously you would want no way to tip your pitches regardless of what camera's on you. But the Dodgers are on it. I don't think it was something Rick Monday was discovering in the sense of nobody knew about it. It was just a matter of this was his first time pitching with this camera angle on the broadcast, and Monday was able to see it and brought it up. But I wasn't concerned at the time. Still not concerned right now with it. Realistically, even if he was tipping pitches, they would have caught it in that game, and then they would have had him make an adjustment. Now, the one detail that was interesting uh, from there's an article by Bill Plunkett about it, and he kind of talked about how, or Pryor talked about it, but that he said from his understanding, pit or stealing signs or whatever isn't as big a practice in the league in Japan in the MPB as it is here. He said that, from my understanding, that's not something that's actively practiced in the MPB. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's my understanding. Where obviously over here, it's much more of an active program by pretty much all teams. But it's one of those things where Pryor's aware of it. Yamamoto, and he also talked about it. He said he's aware of it. He said it's not really a big concern for me at this point. As it gets closer to the season, I'll fix it and talk to the coaches. It was the same in Japan. When the season starts, I'll make those adjustments. So yeah, it's one of those things where, one, there shouldn't be a way to get his grips, looked at and relayed to the hitter in time without the technology that's illegal. He would easily be able to make that adjustment by, having a normal grip in his glove when he's up top, and then moving it around once he comes together, and then going from there. But again, it's one of those where I don't expect anyone to be smarter than the Dodgers in what they employ. They're already looking for pitch tipping at all times, and sometimes it still doesn't work. We know last year, Gavin Stone, the report is that he was tipping his pitches, and that's why he struggled a little bit last year. And the Dodgers maybe didn't find it as fast, or didn't realize it, or whatever the case was. And then when he came back second time around later in the year, he had a little bit more success. So, if they don't recognize it initially, at some point, they'll recognize it regardless. I guess the only time this would really be an issue is runner on second, maybe runner on first potentially, but runner on second would have a direct look, like kind of like the center field camera. But even then, I would imagine if someone was on second base, Yamamoto, would have done a little bit of something. Or now, if he didn't, now he knows to do a little bit of something. So, regardless of all that, I don't think there's a concern there. Definitely not concerned about Yamamoto stuff after we saw that first outing. So it's just a matter of little things here cleaning up. There'll be little nuances that he might have to learn or pick up or deal with as the season goes on, as somebody that hasn't pitched in the big leagues yet. And, realistically, everybody is trying to get that advantage here, that one up the competition, that leg up, whatever the case is. And it might not be something he's used to dealing with, but it's something that he's definitely aware of, definitely something the team's aware of. And, everybody will handle that when it becomes the appropriate time. So, like I said, no concern. If you are concerned, hopefully some of those quotes from Pryor and everybody helps you out. If not, you might just have a little bit of PTSD, and rightfully so. The Dodgers, were screwed out of a World Series because of potentially the other team knowing what was coming and using technology illegally to do so. Like I said, I don't think a team would be that bold to do it now, but you never know, especially considering what happened, and we didn't really get any punishment on the player side. The players could do so, but I don't see it happening, but we'll see. So, yeah, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to check us out wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to make us your first listen. We're here for you every Monday through Friday for about 30 minutes. If you want to be notified when those episodes are ready, you can subscribe to Locked On Dodgers, again, wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. You can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent's91. You can DM either of us for any questions or comments. You can find 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network on YouTube, Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles. They're both running all day long with the biggest news and stories from around the sports world and the LA sports world. And sometimes you'll see us on there. So you want to go subscribe to that. You can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can text directly with us. You can get our instant thoughts and reactions to big news, get updated with big news when it does happen if you happen to be at work or something like that, and everything else. So go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers to get started with us. You can also find us or get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car, or if you're at home, take your smart device, play a podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.